Welcome. Today we will go for the vocabulary item, that is literary vocabulary, which is very much useful in appreciating the literary art. So we have come across film reviews, and we too have book reviews. In order to review a book, we need to know certain say terms related with the literature. So that way, if you know the literary vocabulary, will definitely help you in say understanding and at the same time appreciating the literary work of art. So that way, literary vocabulary is very important. So we need to learn certain see at least regular see terms that may come in literature. So let me share my screen. Yeah. Now we have yeah, literary vocabulary. What is literary vocabulary? Is nothing but writing genres are divided into two categories. So in film vocabulary, we have come across film genres, the characters, and the themes and all that. In literature also, that especially the work of art, that is poetry or prose writing, we have two different categories of the genre. Whatever it may be the language, but the literature will have this. So work of imagination, that is written in verse or prose, as we all aware that so whenever see some if you go for some verse or some kind of a prose, we will go for a kind of imagination. And works of information is given in prose. Usually, the poetry is full of imagination, and poetry also talks about the individuals' personal experiences. Since one man's experience may be the experience of everybody, like love, hate, jealousy, certain common factors of the human being are very vital, and so that way they are universal. So in work of art, they use the imagination. So the imagination, whether it is in the poetry form or in the prose form, and works of information will be there, and that is written in prose. So all information is normally written in prose. So why can't the, though the poetry also has some information, it is not purely information, but the emotions and feelings are attached to it, and there might be some fantasy, some imagination, some reality will be there. So that way, works of imagination, especially if you go for poetry, you will find them. So when it is only the information, we can see it in the prose. So works of imagination can be subdivided into fiction, non-fiction. In poetry and prose, we have some fiction and also non-fiction. So what we all aware that what is fiction? Fiction is not real, but it is only a woven one. That means it is only see the imagination. But whereas non-fiction is say not the imagination, but see rather it is see talking about the general truths of life, general see experiences of life. So that way, now we have fiction and non-fiction, two different categories are there. So if you go for fiction, so what are the words that we normally hear in fiction? So in fiction, we will come across the words called adventure, because we have adventurous movies earlier. So the books talks about the adventurous activities. Then we have Bildungsroman, we have comedy, there is a crime, and see, we also see the detective see, element in the fiction, the epic nature in the picture. So as we all knew that see the age old see the ancient see tales that are say full of wisdom, we call them as the epics. We have fables, the stories. We have fairy tales, of course, a lot of fantasy we can also see, the gothic element we can see, graphic see representation we can see, historical aspect we can see, horror also we can see, mystery will be there, a kind of parody will be there, realistic. At the same time, satiric or satire, we have science, suspense, tragedy, and also Western. So, if you look at the literary vocabulary, film vocabulary, and literary vocabulary, almost have majority of the things in very common, because we have come across fantasy, historical plays, horror plays, adventurous plays, detective plays, even the science, sci-fi, scientific C1. So suspense thrillers we have come across, tragedies we have come across, Western movies we have come across. So that way, whether the fiction consists of all such terms related with the fiction. These terms are related with the fiction. So they are connected with the literary vocabulary, and sometimes we may also see most of them in the film vocabulary. So when it is, whether it is film vocabulary or literary vocabulary, their function will be the same. Uh, so that way we can infer from the film vocabulary also. So that way, see fiction. Not only these, there are so many other words. So for the as syllabus is prescribed for us, so we have taken these terms from the textbook. So there are many more, but these are the commonly used words in the literary vocabulary. So that way, of course, we will be going little deep. See, each and everything will be going little deep into it. So see, whatever the difficult terms we hear, so we will go through them. So tragedy, horror, these are all we knew, and the science. Say realistic, graphic, and all this we knew it very well. So the other terms that we will go for to their meaning. So this is all about the words related with the fiction. Now let us go for the words related with the non-fiction. So what is non-fiction, as we all knew? So which all the time talks about the personal experiences, the reality and all that. So there is no fictitious element in it. That is what we call non-fiction. So autobiography is a person's own biography. So biography is also there. When you are writing biography of others, the personal see history of others, we call it as biography. We have criticism, we have diaries, because people have the habit of writing diaries. So diary is nothing but see we are see putting them in a chronological order with a see order of date, and at the same time see personal feelings are see some certain truths, some certain things which they wanted to see introspect, or else as a memory if they write those are what we call, those all items we can see in diaries. We have essays, we have journals. Journaling again is nothing but a kind of see recording. So we have letters, memoria. That means see when you just remember the memories of certain things in the see prose form, we can write memoria. Even in the poetry also we can write, and a report. So self-help. So whatever is prepared for future use, we can see for self-help, and a testimony. Then a travelogue. So we all go on a travel for a, say every one of us will go on a travel, but we never see put our experience on a paper, and see give it for see we publish it for others to explore. So naturally travelogue is also a kind of see non-fiction item. So wherein people travel worldwide, they go to the different destinations. So how to reach that destination, what are all important things to see there, and see where to stay. So what are all other say amenities are available there, and how they felt and all that. See if they all description of all that travel, we call it as travelogue, and also treatise. So these are the words like autobiography, biography, criticism, diaries, essay, journals, letters, memoir, report, and self-help, testimony, travelogue, and treatise. These are the non-fiction words that we find see in this. So that way, literary vocabulary related to non-fiction is this. So let us go for some of the words that we have come across in fiction and also in the non-fiction. So what is their meaning? So let us try to explore to some extent so that we will get some good idea and memory becomes easy for us. So if you look at adventure, we all knew what is meant by an adventure. Adventure is a French word. The meaning of adventure is nothing but the destiny or fate or a chance event. It may be destiny or a fate or a chance event. So the adventure stories or adventure fiction is like this: a remarkable or unexpected journey of a protagonist and their experiences or event that a person participates in as a result of chance. By chance, they have entered into it. So, and unexpected journey they will make. They may have experiences. They may undergo several events and all that. So the result of all of that is what we call an adventure. So this last detail, a result of chance, is a key element of adventure. So the stories usually involves a character who is brought to the adventure by chance, and chance usually plays a large role in the episodes of the story. So by chance they may to reach to a new land. By chance they may meet a new person. By chance they may discover certain treasure, certain experiences and all that. So the chance plays a very important role in adventure. So it may be chance of an event, or it may be chance of a character, or some experience they may undergo. So adventure stories, adventure related literature is related with that. Usually, it includes dangerous situations, narrow escapes, problems to be solved through intelligence and skill. So, the people who are going on adventure, the protagonist will have is supposed to have good intelligence and at the same time skill. And exotic people to traveling to the exotic places, and also they are ready to go for the brave acts. So that way all adventurous characters are such. The protagonist of adventure is like that. So chance plays a very important role. So this is see, the term adventure is related to the literary vocabulary. So one more word, that is what we call parody. What is a parody? A parody is a work that's created by imitating an existing original work in order to make fun of or comment on an aspect of the original. That means you are taking some original work and you are imitating that. So, in order to make fun of or comment on an aspect of the original, so either you are making a comment on one of the aspects of the original thing, or else you are making fun of it. So the parody is like that. So for fun sake, we create, and sometimes there may be some wisdom that you are going to give by way of commenting on the original one. So that is what we call a parody. So in short, the parody is nothing but an imitation of the original work, but with some fun, and also then as some common aspect of the original work is taken. With some fun, we can go for it. That is what we call a parody. Then look at Bildungsroman. In literary criticism, it is a literary genre that focuses on the psychological and moral growth of the protagonist from youth to adulthood. As we all knew that from youth to adulthood, this phase is very, very crucial. So several aspects, several things will play in between. Several things will play in between. So the youth is undergoing several physical and mental changes. So there are some psychological issues, and see, psychological growth will also be there. So with all that, he may enter into the adulthood. That way, it is about the main focus is on psychological and moral growth of the hero, that is protagonist. So that is what this term means. Then What is a satire? A satire is a genre of literature and performing arts, usually fiction and less frequently in non-fiction. So most of the time we use satire in the fiction, in which vices, follies, abuses, and shortcomings are held up to ridicule. So as to see point out the human follies, or the vices and the abuses and the shortcomings in see the people. So in order to ridicule them and in order to see critically review them, and so that wisdom may take place. So it is a kind of work, so held up to ridicule, ideally with the intent of shaming individuals or corporations or the government or society itself into improvement. So the final purpose of the satire is not just for the sake of fun, but it is for the sake of some improvement. So they take certain aspects of the event, and they make fun of it. So they go on criticizing it and presenting it in a ridiculous way. So that way it is whether human follies, abuses or shortcomings about the organizations and the governments and society or the individual. So this is what we call a satire. So although satire is usually meant to be humorous, its greater purpose is often constructive social criticism. So the immediate effect of satire is bringing us some kind of humor. So the humor has some intention behind it. The real purpose of creating this humor by ridiculing the system or the individual or the government is to improve it, is to find out the problems with them, find out the lacuna with them, or the follies or the vices with them, so that further improvement is expected. So it is say constructive social criticism, we can say, and using wit to draw attention to both particular and wider issues in society. So they may talk about not only one, maybe there's many. So a satire is often used by the writers in order to ridicule, in order to highlight the follies, vices, and their impact, so that the wisdom may come in the people, so that the purpose of the satire is for the social, constructive social criticism. So that way, satires are very, very popular. And Gothic, Goth means a member of a German people that overran the Roman Empire in the early centuries of the Christian era. From there, Goth has come, and Gothic is related to or resembling the Goths, their civilization or their language. So the primary people, the Christian era, in the early centuries of the Christian era, how these Germanic people have lived. So it is all about that. See, about their civilization, their language, and all. Of or relating to a style of fiction characterized by the use of desolate or remote settings and macabre, mysterious or violent incidents. So these are the common features of the Gothic. So if you are using these characteristics, we call them as Gothic. So some mysterious, violent incidents at a set at a remote place, and the macabre and all that. See, this is what we call Gothic. Then autobiography. We have two words: biography and autobiography. Bio means self or life. Graphy means graph means some printed or written work. So that means biography means it is the story of a person. But when you are saying auto means self, auto means self, bio means life, graph means print or written. So an autobiography is a self-written life. So it is different from biography, which is the life story of a person written by someone else. Biographies and autobiography, the difference between a biography and autobiography is this: biography is written by somebody else, but autobiography is written by the person himself. That means if I say it is my autobiography, I have written it. I am narrating the incidents from my life. Suppose if I observed somebody and I writing their say life, then that is what we call a biography. And some people may have their life story written by another person because they don't believe they can write well, but they are still considered an author because they are providing the information. So what they do is they narrate what happened in their lives and what are their experiences and all that. So somebody is making a record of it and bringing in the form of a essay work. So that way, autobiographies are popular. And see, autobiography. If you look at Gandhi's autobiography, My Experiments with Truth, is very very popular. So there are many autobiographies have come, and biographies, as we all knew, that see about all our great see ancient people or the great leaders and all that. See historical see people, all that we have the biographies. So what is empirical? Empirical is based on, concerned with, or verifiable by observation or experience rather than theory or see just logic. So that means empirical all the time means some substantial evidence, with some evidence which can be verifiable, which can be observable, or which can be experienceable rather than a mere theory or just a logic. It's not just a logic and a theory, but based on certain observable, verifiable, and observable experiences. So that way, empirical see works are such. So their main purpose is giving. See, they are based on the observations and experiences. It's not a pure fiction, or they're based on a theory or a logic. So, for example, they provided considerable empirical evidence to support their argument. So, the argument is not just for the argument's sake, but they are providing the empirical evidence. What is empirical evidence? Giving the substantial proofs. That means either the data may be given, or their observations may be given, their experiences are shared, and all that. So whatever argument is there, it must be every see empirically see given evidence. So empirical is that, not theory, but based on the fact, figures, and all that data. Then hagiography, we have the word hagiography is nothing but the writing of the lives of the saint. So when you write the lives of the saint, that is what is called hagiography. A biography that treats its subject with undue reverence. So hagiography, that means see, saints are often see being respected by people. So they are considered as somewhat having some supernatural powers, or else they may considered as a pure soul. So that way, people with undue reverence. They write the biography of the saints and all that. So that is what we call hagiography. Uh, then what is a hypothesis? So in even in our say sciences and the political science and general science like physics, chemistry, and all that, we will get some hypothesis. Hypothesis is what is only a supposition or a proposed explanation made on the basis of limited evidence as a starting point for further investigation. Hypothesis is where based on some limited evidence, they propose they propose an idea, and that idea has to be undergone under has to undergo some kind of investigation, further investigation, so that whatever their hypothesis is right or wrong, whether it is a null hypothesis, whether it is see the hypothesis correct and all that, after investigation only one can know. So before see coming to before without having any see substantial evidence, but only with the limited evidence, it is only the concept of the mind. So we are just proposing it, and that proposal has to undergo some kind of investigation. Before going for investigation, some see idea can be developed. So that idea is what we call hypothesis. Usually this we can see in the what you call science, political science, not only in that, even in the literature also. So even philosophy will have more hypotheses, isn't it? Then we have pastiche. That means an artistic work in a style that imitates that of another work or artist or a period. So suppose if you are taking the work of some 16th century, and so that period, how people are there and how things are there, and if you are just imitating them, that is what we call pastiche. An artistic work in a style that imitates that of another work or artist or a period. Okay. Then we have the word, much used word in literary fiction, that is personification. So see, personification is nothing but giving a human shape. So it gives human qualities to animals or inanimate objects in writing. That means whether it is live or say non-living thing, living or non-living thing, especially animals or inanimate objects are considered as are given the human qualities. That is what we call personification. Person, we know personification means as if they are dealt as a person, as if they are having see that life with them. For example, if a tree is treated as see a woman, so that way, or a nation is treated as a woman. When you say Bharata Mata, so nation is treated as a woman, so we are attributing a human qualities to see a nation. That means for it we are giving all of them. So in fact, in reality, it is not that, but as if see in description, in order to see make an appeal to the see readers. So normally the writers will give see will be treated will give the personification. So they employ personification in order to see bring out the best possible experiences or the feelings in them. So that way most of the time see, writers employ this technique, what we call personification, that is giving a human shape or human qualities to animals or inanimate objects in their work of art. Then look at what is linguistics. This is very very important word, much used word. Linguistics is nothing but the study of language. It involves the analysis of language form, its meaning, and also the context. Linguistics traditionally analyze human language by observing an interplay between sound and meaning. So we most of the time linguistics are concerned with the form and meaning. That means the sound and the meaning. Linguistics also deal with the social, cultural, historical, and political factors that influence language, through which linguistic and language-based context is often determined. So any word is given, then see if you analyze it, its meaning, its form, and its context. So in the background of social and cultural, historical, political factors, so that we can understand that particular word very well. So it is nothing but the study of a language. It is a scientific study of language. That means in a methodical way, we go into the words and find out what could be the meaning of it, and so what is the meaning of it. So that way, we are see going to the words and their meanings and their context, and also the form of the word. So that way, how the word has evolved and all that. So that way, linguistics are very very popular, and this is applicable for all kinds of languages. And having a good knowledge about linguistics will definitely help to learn a language very well. And we have persuasive is nothing but good at persuading someone to do or believe something through reasoning or the use of temptation. For example, an informative and persuasive speech. So that means it is nothing but see pursuing the people or believing something. Polemical, that means of or involving strongly critical or disputations, writings, or speech. So usually sometimes it happens, so strong criticism is given, disruptive disputations, writing or speech. That means a polemical essay. Often see for criticism. Then we have verisimilitude is nothing but see almost the meaning of it is the truth likeness is the philosophical notion that some propositions are more true or less true than other propositions. It is all a comparison between the two propositions. And it is a kind of philosophical notion saying that one is good than the other. So that way, there is a comparison. It's like a truth likeness. We have treatise word, a written work dealing formally and systematically with a subject. So the main focus is on the subject. So it is dealt formally and systematically. A formal and systematic exposition in writing of the principles of subject, generally longer and more detailed than an essay. So more than the essay, if you are going on say giving more and more systematic and formal details about it, so that is what we call treatise. For example, his treatise on Scottish political theory, so it is not just in an essay but goes on giving more and more information, writing the principles of the subject. So in your textbook there are some exercises. So the exercise asks you to find out select the suitable word and fill it in the and give it for the question given. So empirical, setting, hagiography, hypothesis, irony, omniscient, parody, opinion, piece, passage, epic, personification, persuasive, point of view, polemical, verisimilitude. So all these words, majority of these words we have just come across. Empirical, we have come across. Setting means in which say environment it is put, that is what we call setting. A geography we have come across. Hypothesis, irony, parody, passage, epic, personification, persuasive, very similar, these are all we have come across. Point of view is a word. So let us go through. I have given you the answers in the at the end of the question. So the first one is a biography that treats its subjects with undue reverence is what you call a hagiography. That is about see, giving undue reverence to saints and all that. That is what we call hagiography. A mode of writing that uses vigorous and combative language to defend or oppose someone or something is what we call polemical. Then writing based on or verified by observation and experience is what we call empirical. Just now you have come across. An idea or theory that is not proven but that leads to further study or discussion is hypothesis. This also we have dealt. A work that imitates, makes fun of, or comments on an original work is what we call a parody. A narrator who knows the thoughts and feelings of all the characters in the story is what we call omniscient. The general meaning only we will take. Omniscient means present everywhere. So here in literary term, as a literary term, it means that a narrator who knows the thoughts and feelings of all the characters in the story, because he is a creator, he knows it very well. So, or see, he may not be a say creator, but he is only a narrator. So he understood the thoughts and feelings of the character. So that is why it is called as omniscient. A writing style that attempts to convince the reader adopt a particular opinion is persuasive. An article in a newspaper or magazine that mainly reflects the author's opinion about a particular issue is opinion piece. So that's very common term. The quality of appearing to be true or real is very similar to. A piece of writing which contains a mixture of different styles is what we call prose. So these are item these see words that we have discussed previously, and there are more. Another five are there. The time and place of the action is what we call setting. The use of words to convey meaning that is the opposite of its literary meaning is irony. Irony is what? Is you are giving the opposite of its literal meaning. What actually the word may mean to the opposite of where we are giving. So that way, irony is see, employed in order to criticize things or people. So type of figurative language in which a non-human subject is given human characteristics is personification. Just now we are talk about it. So what is an epic? Epic is a book that is long and contains a lot of action, usually dealing with a historical subject. We have epics. So there are many characters, there is lot of action, and moreover it is dealt with a historical subject. That is what we call epic. Then perspective from which a story is told is point of view. So what is the point of view means from what angle, with what perception the story is told. So the perspective from which a story is told is what we call point of view. So this is all about your words and their own literary terms. There is an exercise given in your textbook that some words are given and some dashes they have taken one paragraph and some dashes are given in the middle, and you are supposed to fill up those paragraph with that, with the words being selected. So that means linguistics, we have just come across. What is linguistics? Linguistics is nothing but the study of language, is what we call linguistics. Author we know, why, what, we also know them. Estimates, fascinating. Is nothing but very much appealing. Tongue, then will, three, and living. So there are some common terms and there are some sicker words like why, what, will are there. With all of them, see, you have to fill up the given paragraph. For example, so the paragraph is here. This is a commendably short book of only 142 pages, but it is a fascinating work which addresses three questions. So I'm using fascinating work because this is a commendable short story we have told, short book we have told. So that way there are some fascinating items in it. And since questions are there, and there are three questions I have come across, you look at the question marks also, it is easy to locate that way. Three questions is a suitable term there, so I am using three there. The number one question is makes a global language. So will makes we can't use, what makes is we can't see why also is not possible. So what makes a global language? Then why is English the leading candidate? So will it continue to hold that position? So the author is a former professor of linguistics at the University of Reading, because it is all about this fascinating book addresses the future of the language. So it is all about how English is a global language. Will this be continued? So will it sustain its position and all that? So these the three questions are being asked by. So that way the author is a former professor of one who is concerned with the study of languages. We know that it is linguistics. So I'm using the word linguistics, a professor of linguistics at the University of Reading, England. He tells us that there are today around 6,000 living languages. So that means the language that are being used actively today, there are more than 6,000, around 6,000 languages. But some estimates suggest that perhaps 80% will die out in the next century. So whatever language that are existing today, the 80% of them will be dying in the next century. So what is that word called as estimation? It is only an estimation. You can't say perfectly that it is going to happen, but see, as see the study will give you an say estimation that say within the next century 80% of the languages may disappear. So that way people no longer use them, because the language that are very popular throughout the world for their own trade, education, or for their own business, career, and all that they use. So no longer the language of the land, especially particular related with them, unless it is their see mother tongue. So most of the time the dominant language are English and some other language in the world. So that way there is an estimation that 80% will die out in the next century. So that's why I have taken the word estimates. And in terms of mother tongue use, Spanish is spoken in more countries and growing in use more rapidly than any other language. So in terms of mother tongue, because English, though very popular in the entire world as a global language, but if you look at the mother tongue, Spanish is a mother tongue, is spoken in many countries and growing in more is in use more rapidly than any other language. So that way, he has given the study of the language about Spanish. So I'm using the word tongue in terms of mother tongue. So we can't have any other word there. So we have to use the tongue, mother tongue use. Spanish is spoken in more countries and is growing in use more rapidly than any other language. So that way, I have chosen the suitable words from the given words. There are 10 words are given. Out of these 10 words, I have chosen and see fill it in the blank. So this way you can do. So whether it is fill in the blanks in a paragraph or see the meaning will be given and you have to identify the literary term, that is your exercise. So that way having some good knowledge about the literary terms that we have just discussed will definitely help you in see understanding the work of art and as well as see in appreciating the literary work too. So this way they are very useful in what you call a review of the book. So we have film reviews, we have book reviews. In well, you are reviewing the book, you need to know certain terms like this, so that your see what you call is critical appreciation will come good, and moreover it will be also helpful to understand that. So with these things, let me finish today's class.